deferment from being deported. So Trump campaigns on ending it, calls it quits on it, says it ends in March. It ends of March 2018. And he's like, Congress, you go fix it. You fix it, and we'll work together on something. It's whatever. So Congress tries to fix it. They put up a couple plans. They have a bipartisan plan to protect DACA dreamers, people that have come here because of natural disasters back home, like in El Salvador or Haiti, the 2010 earthquake. So they decide. I think it was Senators Graham and Dick Durbin, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Dick Durbin, decided to put together a bipartisan plan. 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats worked for 4 months on a plan. They brought it to the president. So they called him up, said they wanted to meet. 2 hours later, they meet in the Oval Office, and they are discussing the immigration issue. And within the course of 2 hours, Donald Trump had invited 5 other legislators who are hardliners, like super hardcore against immigration issues, America Firsters, the Trump supporters of the GOP, to be in the room along with John Kelly and a couple of his other supporters. So basically using the bully tactic, you surround these 2 guys who are just coming in there to talk and bring up a plan with a bunch of people who will just parrot everything that needs to be said to support the president so that he can just sit there with his arms crossed, staring down like, look how powerful I am. And it was in this conversation that he brought up the shitholes comment, because he, according to Senator Durbin, had interrupted several times during the explanation of the bipartisan agreement that would have provided $1.6 billion to start building the wall on the southern border, and it would protect DACA recipients currently here and give a little deferred action to people that had come here from Haiti after they had suffered an earthquake, and the people who were suffering in El Salvador from natural disasters, including the social natural disaster of the MS-13 gang, which, as many people I'm sure are aware, is not the friendliest gang on the block.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, they're not cool in the gang, I'll tell you that much. So basically, he continued to interrupt them, and he was just asking questions like, we don't want any chain migration, to which Lindsey Graham, to my surprise, stood up to the president and reminded him that his own father was an immigrant and had come to this country and had, made a plea to not be deported himself. And
I mean,
had
Lindsey
also
Graham
explained,
has always made points of not getting along or towing the line of the president.
it's true.
And obviously, he
Yeah.
did vote for that tax bill.
He did, but they were all kind of pushed into it.
Right.
But the main thing that he said that I liked was that he had told the president that to not use the words chain migration, that it's really offensive to people because slaves were brought to this country in chains. They
In
were
chains.
brought here, and now he's saying that they're just basically using us when there's evidence everywhere. Not that most Trump supporters care about evidence, that most immigrants are hardworking, well educated, and probably have better work ethics than most of us. They, as the saying goes, they do the jobs that we don't want to do. And on top of that, a good deal of them, whether they're from Asia or Latin America or Africa, are highly skilled workers that only got into this country because they qualified under the programs to get visas for highly skilled
Also,
workers.
just to be clear, it's statistically people that migrate from Africa have the highest college graduation
Per
rate.
capita, right?
Yes. And second highest are the people from Asia, but it's that number is something like 43%.
Yeah, I mean,
something
I
like
can
that.
only imagine if the
Now-
tables were reversed that it would not look that way with an American going to Africa.
Right.
They,
Of course not. No way.
the fact that they survive over here and they work at the same time, and he has zero
Also,
integrity. He has
the-
zero
the-
understanding of what they go through.
The idea it's very antithetical to what America is supposed to be, which is, the whole point is you come here from you may come here and you may not have the greatest education, or you come here from a country that it does not have the same statistics that we do, but you come here and you work hard, and then your children you work hard so your children can now take advantage of the benefits of this country and do well, and then their children will do well, and that is the whole point. It's also one last thing. This idea that we see happen so much, which is, you know, if we go back and we say, okay, you know, people came in and their parents had nothing, and there's so many people in Congress that'll tell you that. Marco Rubio will tell you that. You know, at some point, Trump's ancestors migrated here, right? So, you know, you come here and now your belly's full and now we want to close the doors, right? And now all of a sudden, America is not the melting pot anymore. It is sort of what we defined it is. And not to mention, a lot of those countries are, in his words, shitholes, in part because of the things that countries like America have done to them. So to say that now you don't...
Well, Norway didn't do anything to them as far as I'm concerned. Maybe that's why Trump wanted them here, because he knew they weren't colonizers.
Okay. Jay, you were saying something?
No, because you both bring up really good points, and I think some background on the issue will also kind of shed light on what's going on now. So, I mean, what I think the GOP and Trump are trying to do right now is not even just DACA, they're trying to revamp the whole immigration system, right? Something that hasn't been done since the 1960s, which is when we opened up our immigration policy, which pretty much changed the way the U.S. has looked ever.
The Republicans were the ones that did that.
Before that, I think the last time we touched immigration was in 1917. So I mean, this isn't something that we've been changing a lot. It's something that, you know, it's been kind of the way we've done things for the better part of almost a century. The argument that the GOP is making now, though, and one that maybe holds some merit, but not as much as some people think, is that they're saying that it should be a merit-based immigration system in which people are prioritized based on their education, what talents they're bringing to the U.S., and whether or not they're going to take resources from the country here. You know, that sounds all well and good, and there is some truth to that, and we do need some type of that immigration. But by closing off immigration to everyone, or I guess what you would call low-skilled immigration, there's going to be unforeseen circumstances to that. One being that it could interrupt our economy. I mean, it'll jack up the wages for these low income workers at the moment, but it's also going to bring up the cost for us as consumers for what we get from them. And
is it going to jack up wages though?
What happened?
Is it going to jack up wages?
No.
It might. Because, well, there's not enough immigrants coming in.
You're paying people $2 an hour to do stuff anyway.
Their wages.
No, but
this
whole argument,
there's a lack of demand, right?
But it's also antithetical to their whole argument about wages and, you know, this idea that, if the wages go up, they'll hire less people, right? This is what they tell you all the time. So
no, and I agree. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm kind of painting the picture of what
you said. I agree. I'm not saying I agree or disagree.
Yeah, but at the same time, it also doesn't make sense because the Trump administration has almost done things actively to for example, this past April, they suspended the premium processing for H-1B visas, which allow people from
it's a lot of Indian Americans use.
Yeah, the people that would go work in Silicon Valley. I think I read something this week that he's trying to kick out Indian immigrants who are also, you know, coming in with those visas. So I mean, it's almost they're going against their own argument, and I'm not really sure what they're trying to accomplish. And the whole thing with the wall, I mean, he's been running on that since 2015. And last week this week he comes out and he says,
positive they weren't being paid in pesos.
I just figured out that we can't really do a physical wall throughout the whole border. I mean, how are you just figuring that out? And are you going to backtrack now? And how is that going to play out with his base? And as we've learned, I don't think his base is going to give a damn if he doesn't fulfill that promise, because now he said people are shitholes. Obviously, the racists that wanted to hear that, like David Duke put out a tweet this morning saying that, we were losing faith in Trump. He was about to lose some of his most ardent supporters, but now with that shithole comment, he won us back. Hail Trump. So, I mean, he's not dumb, and we've gone through this again. I don't think this is going to hurt him as much as we think it will.
No.
And it just propped him up again with his own base, and I'm not really sure what their end game with this immigration policy is or what they want to do.
It seems to me like they're trying to go back to this isolationist idea where as long as you keep a majority of the country white and you seal us off from the rest of the world, that who cares? I mean, like I've said before, we've got the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean on either side of us, Mexico and Canada on our top and bottom. We're not worried about invasion like countries in Europe or Africa are worried about. We're not worried about anybody coming to take anything from us. We're only worried about what's already here, breaking us up, dividing us, or hurting us.
Also, just one thing. Let's just take a moment to maybe think about the idea that this isn't part of an overarching plan.
I never thought it was.
What if this is quoting the Fire and Fury book. There is sort of a pyramid scheme of scandals going on in the White House, which is any one of the things that he has said, things that have come out of the White House would have ended any normal politician. And the only reason that it doesn't is because we can't stay on one thing long enough without another scandal hitting. So I'm 99% positive that there will be another scandal next week tomorrow. That will have us not talking about this tomorrow, because this should end a presidency, and every other thing should end a presidency.
It seems like every time something like this happens, people never think to ask themselves, like, what is going on while we're distracted by this? And there's a lot of complacency that goes along with it. You know, the two of the people that were in the room with him during this conversation about DACA and building the wall, and which led into the shithole comment, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the word of the year beginning now. Senator Perdue.
It's early.
You know, they were in this room, and within a day, Durbin was talking, Graham was talking. They were both very easily able to recollect everything. And so all of a sudden, these two they can't recall. I can't recall what the president said, but I know that he had America at heart, and he cared about us. And if he said anything bad, he was only saying what we were all thinking. And he just said it out loud, and that's what they were saying.
I'm sorry. There's some shit on your nose.
There's some shit on my nose?
Yes.
Oh no.
Okay.
As far as I just wanted to make sure I got some shit there. There's shit still there. It seems like it's a shit hole, as Vicente Fox would have said that Donald Trump's mouth is the shit hole. But that is not the point. The point is that every time he does something like this, there's something else that's usually going on. You know, the Supreme Court talking about the gerrymandering case, where they're putting on hold the lower court's ruling that the Republicans in Texas redrew their districts to suppress black votes, and now the Supreme Court's putting that hold because they want to talk about it. It's still going to go down party lines.
Or that the Mueller team is in talks with the Trump team about this interview.
They might possibly interview Trump, in which would be under oath. And if Newt Gingrich was here, you know he would press for a full court press on impeachment. And you know, one of the things that they were talking about because of this shithole comment was that there are Democrats in the House that want to censure the president, which is a public and forceful rebuking, and there's no real punishment behind it, but it's a censure. You censure him and say that we don't agree with this. This is not the voice of America. It was used like 3 times before with James Buchanan, Andrew Jackson, which his own party, when took over 3 years later in the House, ended up just wiping it out anyway. So it doesn't have long-term effects, but they want to censure him. At the same time, you've got Al Green, representative in the House, going along with the Congressional Black Caucus, Cedric Richmond, Gerald Nadler of New York. They are supporting this move to censure him, and Green still says he wants to force another vote to impeach Trump, adding this past comment into it, where he had 58 Democrats. 58 Democrats supported it last time. He's just going to keep pushing every week, I'm sure, every month.
It's a waste of time, and the whole censure thing's a waste of time.
The censure is not a waste of time. I mean, it's at least something. Because they're not doing anything else.
Yeah, but what will it accomplish? Shouldn't they be focusing on something more? At least that's what I would think.
Well, at this point, unless you can get a veto-proof majority deciding on any one issue, then the president is going to be able to hold his line on the wall and the DACA thing. Because even if 51 senators and half of the House want to pass comprehensive immigration reform, if the president says, I want a wall built from here to China and a roller coaster on it, he will either get it or we will have a budget shutdown by the 19th. And that's the problem, because it's not really a problem. You should have a threshold for vetoing a president and stuff like that. But at this point, so many Republicans are either retiring because they know they can't deal with this in the coming election, or they are being complacent and they are just following in lockstep with him because they're afraid of losing his support during the midterms in this year. Paul Ryan said it himself. He expected that going into this year that the House would lose 32 seats to Democrats, that they would lose their majority, which is only 24 seats strong right now.
Yeah, hold on, Joe. Can I bring you back to one point, though? I did want to bring up the government shutdown. If the Democrats if it happens, who do you think is going to take the blunt of the blame, at least in the media? I mean, I know who Trump's going to blame, but who do you actually think would have more of the blame or more to lose if this were to happen?
Honestly, Fox is going to blame the Democrats.
Fox is going to blame the Democrats, and then 5 minutes later, after reading that headline, Trump is going to blame the Democrats. But
and
he's
all
also
of Trump's supporters are going to blame the Democrats.
And then 5 minutes after that, they're going to do that. But the point was that going into the election, they said maybe we need a government shutdown, which, I mean, at that point, it's a lose-lose for Democrats, because if you shut the government down, then you're not doing your job. And if you do work a deal, then you've gone back on your convictions.
The other problem is here, like, the Democrats would be playing chicken with a person who's not afraid to crash. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Trump does not care if the government shuts down. This is not about
he'll just go golfing
the country. It's about him and I guess how he looks. So he doesn't strike me as the kind of person that would care if the government was shut down unless it made press for him bad. And
I mean, it would to an extent. I don't think he's going to be freed from any blame. He's the one putting these restrictions and these demands on the Democrats and what the bill's supposed to look like. So, I mean, I know that his followers won't think it's his fault. I know Fox is going to spin it their way. But to think that he's going to be free of any blame, I mean, the fact that he could skirt anything, whatever, it won't affect him. But he'll definitely be, part of the blame.
That's your Teflon Don.
Here's the thing. Let me explain to you how this is going to pan out.
All right.
So
you've been right.
Can somebody please look under his desk if you see a crystal ball? I'd like to have it now.
No, I know, right?
No.
Honestly, right now, anything you say, I'm gonna it's gonna happen.
This is what's going to happen. Right. They are going to get funding for the wall, and this is how it's going to play.
They already offered it.
No, but this is the thing. So essentially, they're going to say that the government will shut down, and then they'll say to the Democrats, do you care about the DACA recipients or not? Because if you care about them, then you will give us the wall and all the funding for the wall that we need. And the Democrats will try to say, we do not want to sort of barter the lives of these DACA recipients on this sort of political grandstanding because Trump wants to fulfill a promise to his base. But we're going to pay for the wall, and they'll work out the deal on DACA. And essentially, Democrats will feel the pressure because, for some reason, they have to look like the adults in the room.
Well, who was the Republican senator who said that he signed the tax bill because Mitch McConnell promised him that they would find? It was the other senator from Arizona. I forget what his name is. I think.
Was it Arizona or Utah? I thought it was the guy from. Hold on.
No, it wasn't that guy. Orrin Hatch. He doesn't care about anybody.
I
think it was the other senator, not Jeff Flake, but the other senator from Arizona, who said that he agreed to vote for the bill because he said Senator McConnell promised that they would come up with something because they had a deadline to March to figure it out. And at this point, I think it was the Ninth Circuit Court actually just blocked the Trump administration from stopping issuing renewals for DACA recipients. He said they can stop issuing new DACA cards, but they must continue honoring renewal applications up until March. And
I think you're talking about Mike Lee, right? Because, I mean, the other Arizona senator is John McCain.
Yeah. How did I forget that? No, then it was, oh man, it's hurting my head to think that he had said, was it Corker? No, it wasn't Corker.
Maybe New Mexico?
Maybe New Mexico. Arizona, New Mexico, they look so similar.
No, they're both Dems, so I don't know.
In any case,
in any case,
somebody had said that McConnell had promised them that there would be a deal on DACA if they voted for the bill, and they voted for it. It definitely wasn't Collins, but the point was that the courts are still on the side of what appears to be justice and righteousness at this point until you get to the Supreme Court and the bandito sitting in a stolen seat goes and pounces on his opportunity to make, Trump proud of his choice. When again, I probably wouldn't be as critical of Neil Gorsuch if he would just do his job right and stop acting like he's the king of the Supreme Court. I mean, he's got Bader Ginsburg and Roberts and all these looking at him like, why are you talking so much right now? You just got here.
No, but I mean, he's a greenhorn, right? And it's I would expect a new person in the court to sort of
rein him in.
Well, I mean, I think they will rein him in ultimately, but I do think there would be. I would assume there would be some level of grandstanding just for a new member of the court. And again, maybe I don't know if Sonia
Sotomayor.
There you go. Thank you. I don't know how much of that she did when she first started, but they'll rein him in.
I mean, everybody. Republicans started off by calling her a lesbian because she played softball and saying she shouldn't be on the court because she's Hispanic and a lesbian.
Well,
but
and
look,
she's not.
Quick,
she's not. I mean, she's Hispanic, but she's not.
Before we move in from the DACA, though, I do want to put my 2 cents in about what I feel Trump meant.
2 cents or 2 pesos?
When he said it was a shithole comment. You both know me. You know that I'm not for all this PC, and you don't have to be careful about everything you say and blah blah blah. This does not apply to this. This was not even this wasn't a thinly veiled racist comment. This was a racist comment. And for people to deny that or act like it wasn't just baffles me. And all his defenders on social media have been going and saying, oh yeah, these places are shithole countries. And to Steve's point before earlier, why are they shithole countries? Whose responsibility is it that these countries might not be in the best state? Latin America, Africa, the Caribbean, there were colonizers, the West, the US, Europe, whatever. My point is that Trump basically said, why are we taking in black and brown people when we can be taking in white people, which is what Norwegians basically
because they don't want to come here.
Here's the
they don't want to come here.
Here's the thing. If you are a person that argues that these are shithole countries and you think that somehow you're an American, to quote Don Lemon, you can go fuck yourself. Right?
Did he say that?
Sure.
Yeah. Now, the thing is this. Don't tell me you're an American or you believe in the American experiment if you're going to say that people from outside countries cannot come here because of whatever the state of their country is. That's the whole point of America. People come from other nations, and it doesn't matter where you come from, you can come here and enjoy the American dream if you work hard. Not because of the whole idea of the comment is to say you come from a fucked up country and so therefore you're fucked up. Right? Yeah. You come from a shithole country, therefore you're a shithead. Right? Yeah. And that is not what America is. And again, if you want to if this is where we are now and that's what you believe, then just say the American experiment failed.
It's like saying if your family has criminals in it, then you're probably a criminal.
Yeah, but it hasn't failed. And I think the other side of what people don't take into account with this is that people don't want to people don't want to leave their countries. They don't. I know my dad, one of his worst regrets is that he never got to go back. He's in his late 60s now. No one knows how long anyone has in this world. But people love where they're born. And if you're coming for a reason, and it's to work hard. Most immigrants are hardworking. I'm a first-generation American. So I've seen the toll it takes on people to leave their country, where they were born, where they were raised, everything they know, to come somewhere else to live a better life, and then to be treated like you're some shit or you're some mooch or some leech simply because you're trying to make a better life, or I guess lumping everyone in that category. Because again, I'm not saying every immigrant is perfect no matter where they come from. There are bad apples. But why lump everyone like that? Why say that is a main goal, or they're coming from shit countries, so like you said, they're shit. It's hurtful, man. It's demeaning. And as someone that is a product of immigrant parents, and it strikes a chord with me, and it sucks, and it really hurts, and it's awful to see our president talk like that about immigrants who, for the most part, come here to work hard and make a better life for their family. And yeah,
Well, to that effect, I would say, when you're talking about the president, I mean, regardless of his comments and about how they make people feel, this is supposed to be our chief diplomat, our commander, the leader of our military. And this is a person who expects these other countries to work with us on fighting extremism, on fighting terrorism, on mineral rights, on making sure the Chinese and the Russians aren't taking everything from underneath of us, letting us starve because all we can grow is wheat and computer chips. And we are expecting them to help us. Well, we have 6,000 troops in Africa right now, mostly counterintelligence, mostly trying to weed out terrorists that might be trying to get to America. And then we're telling all these people, all these world leaders. I mean, you got the African Union, who's already asking Trump to apologize and to apologize to people of African descent as well. And then he disparages everyone. And so, you can only go so far as a bully before people either turn on you or before you talk yourself into such a hole that you can't get out.
Or even our traditional, you realize how small your penis is.
Yeah, look, we have traditional allies that won't even support us, and it reminds me a lot of The Lion King, because I'm going to see that later this week, and it makes me think of Scar and the hyenas and about how he treated them and made them think that they were so small and so weak and so powerless until he himself was in a vulnerable position, packed into a corner, and he had all these people who were once his supporters and once his allies, and they grouped together, they united, and they put him down. And I'm not saying that he needs to be physically put down, but I'm saying that that he is fed by these people who agree with him, and by having enough people to listen to, he is able to continue perpetuating this idea that he's this big, strong man that is not the silver spoon, blonde-haired, gold toilet bullshitting asshole, that he is somehow this sword-wielding knight with a hot wife, and everybody should want to be him. Wife. That he's the Austin Powers of Manhattan.
But where is that moment of weakness in?
What
will it take? He just called a whole segment of the world shit.
Okay,
the man is being pushed into a corner by people like us, by Democrats, by other people who don't necessarily agree with him, and pushing him into a corner is not going to yield any kind of legislative success. Like I said, if he wants a wall with a roller coaster on it that leads to China, he will get it unless we can get a veto-proof majority of Congress in both houses to supersede that. Because perhaps maybe he's not necessarily a racist. I've never. Hold on. Let me finish my thought. I don't necessarily think that he's a full-blown racist, like the ones you see out of the South that are ready to whip a black person and shoot him with a fire hose. He is shaking hands with African people. He has talked to them. He's put some of them in his cabinet, begrudgingly even. He interacts with them in a way that is ignorant. So I fully agree that he is a bigot. I do not believe that he's necessarily racist, but he is a bigoted, elitist, completely out of touch with most Americans, is why he lost the popular vote. And you have people that are experienced in politics, they're experienced in Latin America or African studies, that are advisors, that these people with so much foreign service personnel, like John Feely, who was the ambassador to Panama, who resigned because he said that his oath of office was to faithfully serve the president and his administration, and he is honor bound as a former Marine that he cannot support this president and the things he says. So he resigned his post as ambassador to Panama. And it's not like he said it was because of that. It's just because he cannot faithfully follow through with all these kind of things. And it's you're losing all these experienced people on this issue.
But so Trump said something this week again that it didn't get as much news as a shithole comment, but I did read a few articles on it. And you tell me if you think this is a bigoted comment, an ignorant comment, or a racist comment. So apparently
it sounds like a game we should start playing.
He was in a meeting with advisors, and he was getting, I think, intelligence on Pakistan or Afghanistan, one of them, I forget. And one of the intel specialists was a Korean American. Apparently, he looked at her, called her very pretty Korean, and asked her why she wasn't working, to stabilize North Korea, even though she's an American born, and her specialty is whatever, Afghanistan, Pakistan, whichever country it wasn't they were dealing with. So, is that just ignorance, or is there some? Come on. Like, to me, that's racist. What do you feel? What do you both feel?
I believe the comment itself on the face is racist, but he himself is an ignorant bigot. That he doesn't get that somebody that looks like an Asian can have any idea what Latin America is, or that somebody that's black can have an interest in classical music or something. He's a person who's nearly 70 years old who grew up with a a very possibly hateful father who told him not to trust anybody, and he passed that along to his own children. And he grew up in this little bubble thinking that he was the king of the world and no one could be better than him, and only saw these little blips, these little things where, it's brown people pick the vegetables and Asians do the math and Indians fix the medicine and all that stuff. And he's not a racist in the sense of a person that he hates people of other colors and other races. He is so ignorant and out of touch that he cannot possibly interact with these people in a meaningful way, or in a way that can actually produce any kinds of results. Like in this situation where he sees an Asian woman, how he knew she was Korean, maybe he knew ahead of time, I don't know, but he makes these comments, and it's almost like a non-funny version of Anchorman, where Will Ferrell, as Ron Burgundy, just says whatever comes into his mind,
Yeah, but that's
and it's funny
okay,
like that.
Someone like Ron Burgundy,
but it's not funny when he does it and he means realistic. It because he's an ignorant fool.
Okay, look.
Oh yeah.
Let's not pussyfoot around this thing. He's a fucking racist, right? Do I have to point you to the Central Park 5? He wanted them dead. Do I need to point you to the fact that he said Nigerians should go back to their huts? Do I need to point you to the fact that he says everyone in Haiti has AIDS and they'll never go home? Do I need to point you to the fact that he's delegated a whole continent as a shithole? Mexicans are rapists. Mexicans are the ones bringing drugs. Now, we don't need to find another way to explain this. Like, the pattern is there. If someone keeps showing you something, like, believe it, racists exist. Like slave owners had black guys in the house, right? The term house nigga comes from somewhere. Yeah. Right? Let's not pretend. This is the guy that says he only wants Jewish people counting his money. He's a fucking racist, and let's not call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. That's it. Let's not explain it away. Let's not say it's okay because he's stupid. I'm not saying you're saying it's okay, but he's a racist.
Yeah, you're giving
all these things are examples of him being a racist. That's what racism is.
Well, see, what I think is that people,
because you don't wear a hood doesn't make you not a racist.
People are put too much emotion sometimes into these things, because we're talking about a man who's not necessarily emotional. When you talk about the definition of a bigot is a person who, according to Merriam-Webster, is obstinately and intolerantly devoted to his or her own opinions and prejudices, especially one who regards or treats members of a different group, such as racial or ethnic, because Jews are not a race, because certain people in the Hispanic world are not necessarily a race. They are from El Salvador or they are Mexican. That's a nationality. That's not a race of people, with hatred and intolerance. Whereas the definition of a racist, which he falls under certain categories of it, is a person who shows or feels discrimination or prejudice against people of other races, or believes that a particular race is superior to another. Yes, I think that he thinks that he is superior to other people.
And he's a white man.
Yes. But that doesn't necessarily. You can't just lump someone in that. That's a racist comment there, lumping him in because he's white, saying that because he believes that he personally is better than other people, that because he's white, that also means that he thinks all white people are better than other people. No, but it's part of his identity.
So if he thinks he's better than anyone else, he's going to attribute his race as a big contributing factor to it. And you could argue that, of course, being white, being born when he was born, the fact that he had a foot in the door with $1 million loan already puts him ahead of most people. And to think that he doesn't think that's a part of where he is or how much better he is than anyone, to me, and it might not be, okay, I'll concede one point to you. It might not be the driving force. Maybe race isn't his driving force, but if he's breaking down what makes him successful, being white is part of that. And whatever, we could skirt the line with what, the definition of bigot and the definition of racist, but with the state of the world that is today, to kind of pull that racist card back and try to label him something different is dangerous, because people need to know how he thinks, how he feels, and how he works.
Just is fine to call someone a bigot. Actually, I find that being a bigot is somewhat worse than being a racist, because at least a racist is someone who just fully admits it. Like they acknowledge it. KKK members, they just straight up acknowledge, I am a racist. I believe in white supremacy and the superiority of my race over yours. A bigot can be anybody. A bigot can be a poor person or a rich person. This is a person who is intolerant, obstinately intolerant, and has their own opinions and prejudices, especially when they treat it against someone of a different group. He believes that everybody is not as good as him, that he is personally better than everybody, even the white people around him, even the Jews around him, even the Ben Carsons and the Oprah Winfreys and the people that he worked with when he was building hotels and when he was trying to buy NFL teams. He will interact with African Americans. He will talk to them. He will hire them. He will do some.
That doesn't make you not a racist, though,
dude.
But that doesn't also automatically make you a racist. And listen, I am someone who very much
understands. Why are we going
out
out of our way to sort of defend his level of racism?
Yeah,
look,
man.
The point is the definition of racism, right? A racist is a person who shows or feels discrimination or prejudice against people of other races. Has he not done that?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. So again,
you're putting so much emotion into this right now that it's not allowing for a meaningful conversation.
No, but see, honestly, that is like sort of a demeaning way of explaining to people of color, saying that what this man is expressing is racist, right? Yeah. You can't tell me I'm putting emotion into it. Like,
no, I said too much. You can put emotion, but if you're letting it blind you, then how does that make you better than him?
No, but this is how white supremacy works. They'll tell you that slow down, don't get so upset. That's not racist. Like the man has consistently denigrated people that do not look like him. Yeah. And the idea that someone's putting too much emotion into it is the thing that lets him continue to do it. So we can go ahead and pretend that we can try to figure out because he doesn't because he hasn't personally killed a person of color, or because he hasn't joined a lynching, that he's not a racist. Like, this is what it is. This is what it looks like.
Which is why I led the conversation by saying that he does fall into several. Yes, there are categories of a racist that he does fall into. But I'm saying that the more accurate term for someone like him is a bigot. He is an old man that believes that the 50s were the best time in our lives because that was the best time in his life. Because that was when he was a kid and when daddy was sitting him on his lap saying that you're the golden child, that everything you do is perfect and right, you can do no wrong.
If he was black or Hispanic and when he was born, would he have been sitting on his daddy's lap being told that?
I don't know. How would I know that? Because if I were to just say yes to that, that would probably make me a bigot or racist because I'm just assuming that his race decides how he grew up. Yes, your ethnicity, your race, your nationality, all of these things play into certain things. But he is a person that is a megalomaniac. He is a narcissist who believes that no matter what color you are, whether you're white, German, from Austria,
you're absolutely right.
That he is more of a bigot than he is a racist. But I'm not saying that he is not a racist. And to put the words into my mouth and to get all angry and upset about it. And to get angry and upset by the fact that I'm just saying that there's a better term for a person like him there's
Joe,
nothing wrong with that.
Man. And I love you. I don't think you're a bigot. I don't think you're racist. You're none of it. I know you like more than most people, and you're not any of it. I understand what you're trying to do right now, and I try to do that with Trump. I don't like the guy, and sometimes I try to bring it to perspective. I don't just want to shit.
Like I think Steve Bannon. I think he is a racist. He is a racist.
But he's the same as Trump.
He is not the same as Trump.
Look, Trump has everything that you just talked about. He's a megalomaniac. He probably does think he's better than most white people. And yet, everything you said is true. However, that does not negate that he's a racist. That doesn't cover the fact that he's a racist. I get everything you're saying is right. I just think for you to skirt the issue,
it's not skirting the issue. I'm talking about it flat on and saying he is more a bigot than a racist, but he is still a racist. Yes. He is more a bigot than a racist. The term, the definition of bigot more aptly applies to him and his actions and the person he has been for 70 years than does the term racist, which is just something thrown around all the time these days. And I think that using that language is very important, especially when you have a president like this who doesn't understand language, who doesn't understand words and how they make people feel, and when he says things like chain migration, he's being ignorant to the fact that people were actually brought here in chains. He's not being racist about it. He's being ignorant. He's being a bigot. He's being prejudiced, and he's being obstinate and intolerant. He's intolerant of people's worldviews. He's intolerant of anybody who doesn't agree with him. And just like Steve said before the show, if they do agree with him, he thinks they're brown-nosing. He doesn't like them either.
Now, here's the thing about Trump. And again, if we go back to the definition of racism, I don't know how anything he's done has not fallen into that category. And furthermore, when he denigrates people that are white, he never denigrates them as a group. He looks at them as individuals. When he talks about people of color, it is as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a very important distinction. And again, we started this we went down this whole line of everything by saying he is a bigot and maybe not a racist. That's how this whole thing got started. And the whole point that I'm saying is that if you don't feel like he's a racist, that's fine. But I can tell you, just based on the definition of what we just read as the definition of a racist, he's a racist.
I'm wondering if the headphones are working on your side of the room here, because again, I never ever said that he was not a racist. I've said this is the 11th episode, and I'm positive that in 9 of those episodes I have said that
I'm saying like just now
have been racist. I am consistently saying that the definition, if you want to go by definition, his actions, the things that I have seen and how I've interpreted them, that he is more a bigot than a racist, that the term more aptly applies to people. Why does it matter if it's the other way around? Why would it matter if all three of us are in agreement?
I'm saying the only reason that we jumped into this and we can go back and look back at this today. Now, I'm not saying other episodes. Today, you started out saying he's not a racist.
No, I started out saying exactly what I have written on this piece of paper here, that Trump has been pushed into a corner and will not yield legislative success. Perhaps he is not just simply a racist, but he is certainly a bigot and and completely out of touch with most Americans.
Right there.
That he is that the definition of bigot more aptly applies to him, and that I find in my personal life that language, the terms, the definitions are very, very important. The way you use words and the way you express yourself is very important. And that is why I find people that are ignorant to be abhorrent and to be people that I just simply cannot talk to, because you cannot get through to people like that. You cannot get through to people like Donald Trump, no matter how much information or facts you give them. To a racist, you can straight up tell them, these facts and stuff. They don't care. I don't care. I still hate them. They're a bunch of this, that, and the other things, and we're better than them genetically. And until you give them a 23andMe and they find out that 25% of their family tree is African, like that guy that Steve Colbert called out. So what was his name? I don't remember. Was that the dude guy?
Can I just suggest we move on?
You can suggest all the things you want.
We should move on.
Trump national anthem. This should be a quick one.
And this just completely goes to his level of ignorance. This is a person
which is why I'm bringing it up.
Exactly. Again, this is a person who, for a year, probably even more than that. Probably even more than a year. It's kind of hard to know time frames anymore with this person, but was calling out people like Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee, for athletes in general, for claiming that they're disparaging the flag and that they're poo-pooing on the national anthem and thus hating America. And then he himself, on camera at a football game with military personnel all around
him, college national championship,
cannot seem to remember the words to the national anthem. Is he ignorant? Is he going through dementia? His father had Alzheimer's, so it's possible that he's genetically predisposed to not remember the national anthem, which 5-year-olds know the national anthem. He clearly does not care about the things he says. He says them to rile people up. He wants people to be angry. He wants fire and division. Fire and fury, perhaps. He literally has his hand on his heart and is not even saying words. He's just opening his mouth and closing it at certain points, and then he just stops. And then you wait for "and the Rockets, red glare," which everybody knows that because it's the crescendo. And then he opens his mouth and says stuff.
He probably thinks the first lyric is Jose. Look, all I have to say
Jose,
about
can you see across the wall?
Yeah, look, all I have to say, and to jump off your point, is that what this proves to me is that he is a megalomaniac. He is not interested in anyone but himself, and he's not a patriot. He should be, and a man of his wealth and stature and someone that has accomplished as much as him should love the country that gave him these opportunities. But then that also shows that all he's interested in is posture and stature and fame and being president. Some people argue, and I feel that he never thought he would win, and now that he has, he's just using it again almost as a game show. You know, it's just a way to push his brand. He is making money out of it, which is a whole other topic that we can go into how that's illegal. But he's using the presidency to actually enrich himself and to push his Trump brand. And this just shows that he's not a patriot. And it was funny to me, and at the same time, it's heartbreaking. But again, Teflon Don.
I'm waiting for the bad lip
reading video. You go on websites, you go on comments. His fucking people are defending him, saying that no, he was saying them. No, what are you talking about? Like, you know, these are the same people that like America, you know, America first, make America great again. We're the patriots of the patriots, you know, whatever. And then their leader can't fucking sing their national anthem, and yet that's okay. So I mean, there's nothing really more I have to say on it. I'm not exactly shocked. It just shows me more.
I want to see the bad lip reading video of it. I want to see people filling in words for him and doing it in his voice. And maybe we should actually do a segment like that. I don't know.
Maybe. That'd be fun. Little 5-minute
Steve,
video.
anything on the national anthem?
No, not really.
Nope.
Do you know the national anthem?
No, but I'm not the president of the United States, so there's that.
Well,
all right. So...
Speaking of knowing things about America, I think some people might also be aware that the Constitution in the Bill of Rights, there, the Fourth Amendment, has a prohibition on certain things that the government can and can't do. If you'd like, I can pick up my handy-dandy copy of the Constitution and read to you the Fourth Amendment, but I won't bother you so much with that. What I can do is tell you that the FISA bill, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, passed after 9/11, was renewed in the House today. And it basically allows any American citizen...
Wait, was it renewed?
It was renewed in the House, and now it's going to the Senate.
Oh, to the Senate, where Rand Paul
is threatening to filibuster along with Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon. So it's a bipartisan filibuster.
Good.
And he said that Rand Paul said that if there's ever a time to filibuster something, it's now, especially to defend the Bill of Rights. And I'm going to read the Fourth Amendment right now. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The FISA court basically, and the act itself, allows the American government to blanketedly spy on anybody, including American citizens, if they believe, all they have to do is believe that an American is speaking to a foreign national. It could be your cousin in Egypt, or your friend that's hanging out in Amsterdam, or whatever.
Or my cousin in Ecuador.
Or your cousin in Ecuador. If you're talking to someone outside the United States, that they can listen to. Apparently, you know, they were saying things like even the president could be tapped on this, you know, because if he's talking to someone outside the U.S., you can watch him. It's a blanket surveillance. Things like Edward Snowden kind of popped out. It's insane that they would continue to push it, even though Republicans were pretty much against the entire thing when Obama was president, and now the Senate wants to filibuster it, which I'm all for it. I think that the FISA Act is definitely due for expiration, or it could be tweaked much easier. Don't touch American citizens.
So to your point about tweaking, exactly, that's what they should do. Because I think the main issue here for people like Rand Paul, maybe for anyone who's interested in this, is I think specifically Section 702, which allows them to actually, you know, it's supposed to only be for, I think, monitoring foreign people or agencies or whatever. But again, it's being used to also, like you explained it, to track conversations from here abroad. And the thing about the FISA court is that, you know, I was reading into it, and it's a really shadowy kind of conspiracy way that they figure out and give out these warrants. So first of all, there's 11 judges that rotate weekly, and they're appointed by the Chief Justice. So there isn't a hearing, there isn't anything. They're just appointed by him. And they only hear from lawyers from the Justice Department. No third party is allowed to defend or anything. They're not even you know, allowed to go into the court unless they go through the Justice Department. So again, for a country like ours that is supposed to hold freedom above everything, it just looks to me as a very shadowy, almost conspiratorial way of the U.S. kind of doing this. And I agree with Rand Paul, and there should be, I think, a bipartisan effort to actually tweak this or just get rid of it, because I think it was Ben Franklin who said that if we give up our freedoms for the sake of security, then we don't deserve freedom. I'm paraphrasing. I think it's something of the sort. But how far does it go? You know, like how far do we give up our freedoms to feel safe? Mm-hmm. Because that's their argument. It's like, oh, this is meant to just deter terrorism. It's not meant to listen to the everyday, you know, good working American. But how do we know that? And what Snowden and what other people have shown is that it hasn't always been used that way. So again,
I mean, I kind of wish they were listening in on this conversation because then
they
we'd have
probably
more
are.
viewers.
They probably are. Who's to say that they're not? The NSA isn't listening to this right now. We probably said 5 words already that triggered some system there to flag our conversation. Some analyst is probably listening in right now.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you really think they're going to give up any power
Hell
that they
no.
have?
No.
Well, I would wonder to piggyback off of that, Steve, because it's a very good point. Is that even if the FISA law was shot down in the Senate and never made it to the president's desk, would they give up all the networks that they've built, all the monitoring that they've been able to accomplish?
It'll probably go off the books. It'll become a secret,
I mean,
you know, like...
I don't think they would. I think they would maintain it and just not talk about it. It'd be like Bourne identity crap right here. Oh, my goodness. The things
but it expires when? On the 19th? What happens if it expires? Because it's supposed to be
basically what we just said.
Right?
If it expires, I don't think they care. I think they would like to have on the books funding, but like they said in Independence Day, why do you think you pay $50 for a wrench, $100 for a toilet seat,
or $20 for a hammer?
Yeah, $20 for a hammer. They find a way to get the money to where they need to get it to keep what they're doing, and then they just.
I did not remember that line from Independence Day. That's
that was his dad. Yeah. That was Steve's dad, I think.
Yeah. What the hell? Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum's character.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. Yeah.
So next up on the list here is we got to get our eyesight checked because I'm pretty sure I saw something that said Oprah 2020. I've heard some people talking about it because she had a speech at Golden Globes.
I've been waiting for this one.
I have to tell you, I do not have too much to say on this issue because as far as I'm concerned, it should be Biden Sanders, and if anything, maybe Biden Winfrey. But I do not think that it would be
Biden's
wise.
A liability after the Me Too movement.
I don't think it's. I think it would not be wise to follow up with a game show host being our president to having a talk show host be our president. And I think Seth MacFarlane actually said that best. That it leads to this dystopian idea that that's the only people that can now lead us, are these people who are celebrities, these people that everybody knows, that no longer do you have to be a good public servant and work your way up and be that hard work and pull yourself up by the bootstraps politician and get elected on your merits. Not that that's always happened. I mean, people have often just been given things like George Bush and whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, Donald Trump and Oprah, they're both considered populists. I mean, they've done it in completely different ways, but they're both populists, and they're both people who are, read the Bible every day kind of folks, and not that there's anything at all wrong with that.
I love the lower third right now.
There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if you're going to bring that kind of a way of governing into a country like this, then you have to understand that there are going to be plenty of people who will disagree with you and not listen to anything you say afterwards just because of that.
Look,
so I'll toss this to you guys.
There would be something beautiful and poetic if the first woman president was also a black woman.
That would be awesome. But it should be Michelle Obama then.
But
Michelle Obama, baby mama.
I would love for Michelle Obama. But even then, aren't we being a little hypocritical, right? Because she was only first lady, which Hillary was also. But then Hillary had to go and gain experience in the Senate, do other work, become Secretary of State. So that would
twice as
almost
hard
be a little hypocritical for us supporting Michelle. I love Oprah. She made a whole lot of something out of nothing. She's an intelligent, hardworking, driven woman, well-spoken. I mean, I can go on and on about how she's great. That does not mean she could be our president. And again, I agree with you, Joe. I think if we go down that path, and I think Steve said it before, where does it stop? Do we get a Kid Rock presidency or a candidacy, which we almost did in the Senate? Do we get a Dwayne Johnson presidency, a Justin Timberlake presidency? How far does a Mark Zuckerberg presidency? Where does it stop? And being celebrity, being a famous person doesn't add up or equate to being a public servant and to actually caring about the direction of a country. If anything, you might just solidify the things that let you become who you are, and that's not always beneficial to the rest of us that didn't become multi-billionaires from a talk show host. And again, I just think it's a slippery slope, and as much as I love her, if she went back and maybe became a senator, a congresswoman, and then maybe ran, she'd have my support. But flat out following Donald Trump with Oprah, I don't think would be beneficial to anyone, including the Democratic Party or our country. So.
Now, LeVar from On the Real, the co-host of one of the other shows on the network, says, everybody likes to forget that Ronald Reagan was an actor, but he was also governor before.
And he ran for president 5 times.
Yeah. So, but that said, I think let's not kid ourselves here. if we get to 2020 and it is Oprah versus Trump, I will vote.
Oh, I'm voting for.
I will illegally vote for Oprah 5 times.
Just drive yourself to every different state
absolutely.
in the region.
So let's be clear. But that said, I do think that if the argument is that, you know, you need experience to run the country, and that's the Democrats' argument, that Trump is a celebrity, Trump is a lightweight, I don't know how effective putting up Oprah as a candidate is. That said, we can stand on platitudes all we want, but we need to win, right?
I would vote for Red Solo Cup before I would vote for Donald Trump.
Filled
or unfilled, empty or not. It could be after a kegger, and I would still vote for it.
You have to, and this is Robert Greene as well as, and I think Robert Greene was quoting Machiavelli when he said, you need to see the world as it is as opposed to how you'd like it to be, right? And so if maybe what it takes now is celebrity to win. Now, again, it's not, the problem with Trump is not necessarily that he is a celebrity. It's that he is incompetent. It's that he is a narcissist. It's that he is a bigot, a racist, whatever we want to call it. But it's, if he was a more introspective person, I don't think the fact that he had no governing experience would be as much of a problem. I think that a smart person who has an idea of the world that is bigger than themselves and their own ego would surround themselves with smart people. Trump surrounds himself with opportunists and sycophants, right? People that will never tell him no. So as long as there is a person, regardless of what their class of celebrity is, that is willing to surround themselves with people that are experts in the field and willing to tell them the truth, I think I have less of a problem with it. And I think that Oprah doesn't strike me as sort of self-absorbed as Trump. Or Oprah strikes me as a person that has more of a sense of the world and her surroundings than Trump does. So again, what I would not prefer that it's just because of what it means, but I think we'd be way better off with a person like Oprah than Trump.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that, you know, it's the celebrity become the way. And I get your argument. In the world of Facebook and in the world of social media and constant news cycles and tweets and blurbs, and, you know, maybe it does take a celebrity to get above it. And maybe that's something that speaks for society. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is just the inevitable route of where we're going to, and Trump was, you know, the beginning of it. And that would just be sad. LeVar just posted an article that I hadn't read before.
I just read it.
The Rock says he's seriously considering.
Jesus Christ. That's
no, but some of what he said was actually what you were just saying, Steve. He was saying that, you know, he's taking it seriously, but that he would surround himself with some people. And to that point, I think, all right, maybe if you do want to do good, if you do position yourself with people around you that will guide you, I guess, in a good way, or have good ideas or policy, then maybe there's a possibility. But at the end of the day, if you're not versed in it, there's a lot of nuances in politics, more than it's ever been, and it just keeps getting more complicated the more that the world gets smaller. So what if you're just not intelligent enough, or you don't grasp the issue enough, that when someone might be guiding you in a way that you don't fundamentally want to go or agree with, you're just not realizing that that's happening? And who's to say that hasn't happened to Trump? Who's to say that wouldn't happen to The Rock or to Oprah? What if it's this really nuanced issue and someone's trying to explain it to you, then it just goes over you and you make a decision based off of that?
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I don't think the Oprah has for decades expressed political views and has contributed to political causes and has been sort of a Democratic or a kingmaker on the Democratic side of things. Yes. Oprah has run foundations. Oprah has done public works. Right. So again, and The Rock has not really expressed any real political views.
I mean, he appeared at some Republican national conventions. According to that article right there, he'd done some voter outreach and tried to get people inspired.
Yeah,
But he says he's an independent.
Right. But again, and so I think there's a very large gap between The Rock and Oprah, right?
For sure.
And again, if in some years from now, The Rock has, expressed political views and took standings on certain positions and voiced opinions on certain bills and has done forms of public work, maybe, right? We've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger do this. We've seen what's the other wrestlers, wrestlers?
Jesse
Ventura.
Jesse Ventura. We've seen them do it. So it's not out of the question. It is, have you sort of expressed any acumen in the political world? And so I think Oprah is like less laughable than The Rock, in my opinion.
Agreed.
You make valid points, yeah. And these people that you just mentioned right now, Ventura, Schwarzenegger, even I don't think Reagan was the worst president ever. They didn't really fail at what they did. Jesse Ventura was actually a pretty good governor.
Reagan
and
wasn't
Schwarzenegger
the most...
What happened?
No, I'm saying Reagan wasn't the worst president ever, but I do think he's maybe the most overrated president.
Oh,
ever.
Heavily overrated and
dude,
definitely not the best
Jesus
president.
for a person that was essentially a moderate. Like, I love hearing all these people go on about Reagan as if he was like this ultra conservative savior. And aside from maybe the way he viewed economics, he really wasn't. And I don't know, whatever.
He made people feel good while the Soviet Union was collapsing.
He was a decent president.
He made people feel good while the Soviet Union was collapsing. He made America feel like they were good. He said they wanted to make America great again. That was his tagline that he used. So Trump stole that, just so you know. And he, my father was a fan of Reagan, and he literally cried when Reagan died. And after Reagan got shot, his popularity got way higher. But I mean, towards the end of his presidency, his mental health. Is that when no one's
taking a shot at Trump yet?
His mental health was failing. He, people around him were saying that he would forget things, that he would stutter and mumble, and that he wouldn't have coherent sentences and stuff.
That
but
sounds
he
familiar.
still finished out the rest of his term, and his vice president became president, thankfully only for one term. And then Bill Clinton swept in, and he was all charismatic, and he played the saxophone, and had that fun accent, and then bam, he got himself 2 terms, but a Republican Congress led by Newt Gingrich, who wanted nothing but to destroy him, basically the Mitch McConnell of the day, even though Mitch was there at the time.
Yeah, and again, I think going high when they go low didn't really work out for us.
No,
last time. Didn't. So again, we can stand on the platitudes all we want, but this is it's a progression, because you think about Reagan, right? That literally was a celebrity president. But again, like you said before, he became a governor. I understand. And people would argue that Obama was so popular that he was in his own way a celebrity president. Trump is like the antithesis of Obama. He's literally, again, a celebrity president. And we've just been leaning more towards, from Reagan to Clinton to Obama, now Trump. Maybe
so
that's
now you're saying
what
that
it is.
Personality matters more than almost.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
The charisma, and that's what people say about Dwayne Johnson, is that it's his charisma, it's his aptitude, it's the way he speaks, it's the way he makes people feel. That gives them the idea that he could be president one day, and the way Oprah has made people feel.
Or a convention speech or campaigning, I think he'd be great.
Absolutely, but with regards to Oprah, she has made people feel good her entire career. It's been based off of that's because I'm Oprah, and look under your car, there's a seat, and vice versa.
I also don't think that with Oprah, I don't think that Oprah's an empty vessel.
No, she's full of information, knowledge. She's full of genuine care for people. And I don't see a lot of narcissism in her the way you see it in Donald Trump. I don't think that there's anything wrong with Oprah being president. I just think that there are other people who can help us. Okay. I prefer other people who can help us recover from this current mess. President?
What happens to Julian Sanchez? What happens to Julian Castro? What happens to Kamala Harris? What happens to Cory Booker? I mean, are there chances
they all get put in the administration,
or are they going to have to be celebrities? To become president now.
Well, I mean, Cory Booker probably thinks that he has to be a celebrity to get elected to him, which is why he tries to be all over Facebook and TV and interviews and YouTube and all this stuff.
Also, to be fair, Trump has expressed political views and has flirted with running for president for like 30 years.
Yeah, so Romney.
Right, and he just sort of waited until it was his time. And this is a completely unrelated note, but I just wanted to bring this up before we forgot, because I don't think we have any Me Too. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
We have a special
Someone
guest.
wanted to stop by and say hi, guys.
I think she's going to be president.
It's a possibility.
Oh, she will be president. She'll be the first woman president, right, mamas?
Oh man,
Sorry,
you just crapped all over Oprah's dreams. No, but I think I think that, where was I going with this? What was I saying? I completely
something about a chicken salad sandwich.
No. I was saying I was going. Oh no. Okay. Right. So we don't have anything about the Me Too movement except for maybe Oprah's sort of quasi opening campaign speech, but opening stump speech. But many people would argue that Trump is sort of the sort of backlash to having the first black president, right?
Yes, I agree.
Now, do we think that where we are with the Me Too movement, that there will be some sort of a backlash to that in the same way that we saw Trump get elected, sort of as a response to the browning of the country?
I think
there's not so much a backlash. I just think it's kind of everything comes in these little ebbs and flows, these waves, like Dave Chappelle said, and like I mentioned in the last episode, was that if you don't take apart the system that put things into place and you just go after the individuals, then nothing is going to change, and in fact things might actually get worse later on.
Yeah, we talked about that last week with the mop in the rain. And it's the same thing. Like, you want to stop drugs, so you arrest the drug dealers on the corner. That's not really stopping the problem. So I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know if we had anything else that would relate to that. I'm ready to move on if you are, but long story short, I would prefer that it's not Oprah. I would prefer Kamala Harris or Biden or
to tie it up, who would you want if she was going to run? Who would you want to put her with, running mate?
Oprah.
Oprah. I would put strategically. I would put. This wouldn't work though, right? No, because I was gonna say Oprah should
two black candidates is not gonna.
No, not that. And if this was my fantasy dream team, I would say like Cory Booker runs with a Kamala Harris as the VP. If that was my dream team, but that's not like possible, right? But if she did run, who would I want to be her VP? I think
Melania,
strategically,
House of Cards style.
I think strategically she would want. I think strategically Bernie would help with that, but I don't know that their ideologies would crash.
Winfrey Bernie, 2020. What do you think, George? Running mate for Oprah. For Oprah.
If it wasn't for the
and I don't think Biden would.
I would say that Biden
be VP twice.
I think it'd be funny though.
It'd be hilarious, but I don't think he'd do it.
Who?
Biden be VP again.
I mean, you could, right? There's nothing stopping him from that Constitution, right? He could do it again, right?
Constitutionally blocking him from it.
Can he or no?
No, there's nothing blocking. He can do it again. Yeah, he can't be president twice.
Yeah. So
what about Elizabeth Warren?
I really don't know. Maybe
George loves Elizabeth Warren.
But then here becomes a problem, right? So to what you just said, Steve, before we get off the topic, because I think you bring up a really good point. With the backlash of a Trump presidency, and at least the state of the country as it is right now, in the start of 2018. I see two problems with an Oprah presidency. One, she's a female, unfortunately. Jesus. Second, she's black. So I mean, the minority vote would have to come out the same way it did for Obama, or maybe even more, to negate, I think, the people that would come out against her simply for those two things, that she's a woman and she's black. And a lot of white women voted for Obama. Do you think that same voting bloc would vote for Oprah? Maybe.
Well, here's the thing. Do you know white women voted for Obama because Oprah told them to?
Exactly.
So Oprah does have that broad appeal on both sides. I think more so than any of the other like legitimate candidates.
You're right.
Oprah she is sort of in the zeitgeist of America in the same way that Donald Trump was, and I think that she is like the celebrity answer to that.
True.
Whereas she has been in the subconscious of America for 20, 30 years, right?
So you think she's so much like entwined into the fabric of our culture that maybe race won't be an issue? I mean, no one's colorblind. I'm sure people race will be a topic, but you think that then she's superseded that it's not going to affect her as much as it would maybe
I don't
Kamala
think
Harris
that
or Cory Booker.
I don't think that there has been a 20-year smear campaign on Oprah like there was on Hillary.
True story.
I think that if she were to run, I don't know that the sort of opposition would have enough time to smear her in the way that they needed to, because again, Hillary almost won, right? And it was sort of, we can blame Russia, we can blame all that other stuff, but it was another factor there was voter apathy. And if she had the same turnout among the African American community, the black community, Hillary would have won. And I think that Oprah would get that. And I also think that Oprah would get a larger percentage of the white female vote than Hillary.
Consider white women voted for majority for Donald Trump. They did not vote for Hillary Clinton.
But Oprah's a different thing.
That was a major vote turn from Obama to Trump.
A lot of those women stayed home. They voted for Trump, stayed home and watched Oprah on TV for a lot of their life. So I do think that there's something there, and if it needs to be a celebrity, I say Oprah is a smart choice.
The political geek in me is the one that doesn't want a celebrity, but I would never if it was Oprah versus anyone on the right, she's getting my vote, and whatever. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't vote Oprah over John Kasich because I'm a closed John Kasich fan.
He's a good. He knows how to eat a sandwich. I'll tell you that much. The man knows how to eat a sandwich. But you know what you won't see that on is Facebook's news feed.
Hey, I thought we were going to the lady first, but okay.
Yeah, well, we can. I was going to bring up the lady because, but then again, I was 50-50 on whether we even talk about it because, I mean, everything that this president does is a controversy, but now we've got this woman. Her name is her stage name is Stormy Daniels, but her real name is Stephanie Clifford. And right before Donald Trump ran for president in 2016, his attorney, Michael Cohen, had her attorney and her sign a non-disclosure agreement along with a $130,000 payment that they contend was just for whatever they want to say it was for. But for the media and for most people that understand, they can put two and two together, realize that Donald Trump had sex with this woman after being married to Melania Trump. In 2006, the affair apparently occurred, and they got married in 2005. And it happened in their at a golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, and they were introduced, and they did it. And then he was about to run for president. I guess he was tying up all his loose ends. $130K later, non-disclosure agreement. She can't talk about it. People have been trying to bring it up, and he says that there's nothing to talk about here. We've denied it, and that should be just.
Also, to be fair, she has also denied it. I think she said something if she wanted to come out about it, she would do it by writing a book.
She didn't deny it. Michael Cohen sent an email to the reporter signed by her, saying that it was a 2-paragraph letter saying that nothing happened, there was no affair, but didn't explain why she had to be paid $130,000 and sign a non-disclosure agreement. And the other woman who had accused him during the campaign did come out, and she did say stuff, and she said, listen, I don't care how much money you pay me, I'm going to tell the truth. He groped me in a hotel and did all this other stuff. I don't remember what her name was. I apologize for that. But the point was that, this is a person who she can't say anything, and she would say that because she signed a non-disclosure agreement. She would say if it had happened, I would have written a book or whatever. She can't outwardly say it, or she could be sued for God knows how much money. I mean, she's appeared in 150 films, and if Pornhub is any suggestion, she's probably got dozens of dollars right now. She can't afford a Trump lawsuit.
Well, I mean, I think the real thing, because it's not like look, not to be tabloidy or whatever, but like I think that the key here in this story is that where are the values voters, and maybe sort of character does not matter. Exactly. You know what I mean? And so, but that's been clear already, and this is just another example of that. Yep. I don't think we need to spend like too much time on the men's sex life, but
to be honest, I'm not surprised. That's all I have to say.
Well, I mean, if you look at the other pictures of her, you can see why he would have, what's his quote? Came at her like a bitch or something like that. How does he come at women when he wants to grab them? In any case, it does say a lot to the values voter people who seem to not care that he sells liquor, he owns casinos and strip clubs, that he sleeps with porn stars behind his wife's back, that he's been thrice married at this point, and he, at the same time he's throwing fundraisers for evangelical preachers and such.
But the values voters, they hated the Clintons.
Yeah, they hated the Clintons, and Jesus told them to vote for Trump.
Right.
Roy Moore also believed that.
Right. All right.
Next, Facebook. The Zuck. The guy who at some point in time might also be president too. Facebook has announced that they are going to be severely paring back on the news feed, specifically businesses and content, things like that that show up in all of our news feeds. Believe it or not, I get quite a bit of news and information from articles I see on Facebook, but I do believe that more than 80% of the things that I read have been reposted by a friend or by someone that I'm Facebook friends with, because there is a difference between a friend and a Facebook friend.
Yeah, there is.
There's a very big difference. But I posted when I read the article, I reposted that while I would be upset to lose the Facebook that I'm used to at this point, because I do enjoy reading the news feeds. I enjoy when eBaum's World has 51 memes that'll make your day a little bit better, so I don't actually have to go to eBaum's site. I can just see it on my Facebook, and it opens in a Facebook window. But the point was, and the whole point of Facebook in the beginning was to get us all to talk to each other, to be closer, even though we're all far apart. And I get that, like George and Jay said here, you got to go back to basics, and that's what they're doing. And they even contend that they will lose people. People will spend less time on Facebook, but there will be more quality time.
What's pretty funny is that their stock has already dropped 4% since the announcement. Now investors are kind of getting worried, and I can see that because the losers of this are publishers and brands. But to kind of put everything into perspective, and I don't know how many people will or will not, modify or edit their the way their newsfeed works, is that they're going to allow you, Joe, like if you really feel strongly about how your newsfeed looks like right now, Joe, you can keep it. It's just not going to be the default setting anymore. Yeah, but you can go back and you can prioritize what you want to see or who you want to see, etc. I'm going to miss it too because I get a lot of my news. I love reading those articles on comicbook.com, the 20 strongest superheroes of all time. And yeah, that's great. And you don't have to go to the website to look for it. But then again, it's detracting from actually talking to people. And they actually cite a study that was done in 2015 that says that passive consumerism was a word or something, or at least the way you intake it, it doesn't help you mentally. Like it actually makes your day a little worse. It makes you feel sad. And I don't know what the end game is because I don't think businesses really care, and I'll put Facebook up there about, the well-being of its end users or of their consumers, but they're contending that they're doing this to serve us better and to make us feel better, even if it costs them some money and some users, because it's going to go down. They're not going to be on Facebook as long as people are now. With that being said, though, and again, there's nothing out there that's saying this at the moment, but what if Mark Z is using this to kind of, I think Facebook
I know where you're going with this.
Why
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, no, it's a big reason why Trump won. And I think right now, people do argue, people get, right before we got on the show, I watched a video of, I'm not going to get into it. I watched a video
I told you stop doing that before
and it made me feel bad.
The show.
And you're right. And all right, so maybe that's not what Facebook should be, right? And maybe Facebook had a bigger reason for a Trump presidency, or at least the state of our politics or the state of our culture, that we might give it credit. And this might be a way to kind of push back on that. And I'm for it. And I don't know. And yeah, and maybe I think you know where I'm going with this, Steve. Maybe Mark is getting ready for a run. Maybe a congressional run in California. I just looked it up. He doesn't live in the same congressional district as Darrell Issa. But what if he moves? I mean, someone with his freaking money can go wherever he wants and then run for Congress. So again, I think it's a good thing. It's a big change for them. I'm interested in how it's gonna affect their stock market.
I'm interested in how it's going to affect the R Squared Network.
R Squared Network. I mean,
coming
considering right now we're
Facebook.
right now we're live on
but
Facebook.
They're gonna prioritize engagement. So as long as you're
don't mess up the church's money is all I'm saying.
What I would like to know is, because so much of Facebook is what it is now in these news feeds, who's going to fill in the void when they stop doing this? Like, is another site going to pop up, and is net neutrality going to say, no, you can't do that? Facebook's just going to buy everything, and we're going to strangle your stream.
Well, so here I have just a few thoughts about this, and yes, and more yes. I think that this is all in preparation to repair his brand in I don't mean the Facebook brand, but yes, the Facebook brand, Mark Zuckerberg's brand in the eyes of the public, so that he can go for a public run. That said, we said this before, any business that depends on another business for their fate will always be at the whims of that business, right? And I remember a few years back when Facebook was courting every publisher of online material. Hey, publish your articles here. Come here. Brand your stuff here.
They bought YouTube. They bought Vine. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
So again,
Instagram.
Well, they didn't buy YouTube. That's Google.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
And Vine is Twitter. Yep. But the point is, I'm saying, like, people, like publishers of blogs, they sort of leverage their position in the market to get them to put all their content there, and now they're going to de-emphasize that content where they sort of coaxed everyone into placing there. And there's something to be said for that, and again, they're doing what's in their best interest, and again, because maybe like the number one and number two most visited websites in the world are Google and Facebook.
3 billion users.
Right.
That's half the population in the world.
So again, when they say we're going to de-emphasize this content, understand that they are adversely affecting businesses that make their bread and butter off this platform, and that I don't really know how I feel about that.
Yeah, on a PR standpoint, and someone that that I went to school for this, is interested me in that way. It's a pretty big deal, because now brands are going to have to figure out a different marketing strategy, and they can't fall back on Facebook, which almost the whole industry has done. For the last 10 years, everyone's been integrating, or at least coalescing, to the whole social media usage. They bank on it for exposure and almost like free engagement, and they're not going to have it at the tip of their finger, at the tip of their fingers.
Listen, I'm going to be sad when it changes, because I mean, I don't really talk to a lot of people on Facebook. Maybe it'll force me to go back to that.
Maybe it'll help. Maybe it'll lead to a Joe Oswald congressional run. When you start talking and taking all your time instead of reading pointless articles, you'll be talking to your people.
I mean, think about all
getting
the
points across.
Stuff.
I don't know.
There's so much interesting
Also,
stuff.
Let's be clear. Facebook is an advertising company, right?
Yes.
And
at the
those
their main
those brands are where they're making all their money from. And if the shareholders have anything to say about it, if they lose money, I guarantee you they'll just be those brands and those articles will be presented to you in a different way, right? It'll be
flashing banners around the entire thing rather than just a side.
You will still hear from your brands, because unless Facebook has another way of making money, which they have not expressed that they have.
Listen, and in net neutrality, you might have to pay for a subscription to Facebook.
Yeah, but they're so far ahead of the game, especially with the amount of users they have, and I think even how much money they have in the bank and popularity, that maybe they could play for the long game. Maybe they'll take a hit now and they'll just keep going. I don't think this is going to bring them down. You get me? So maybe
no. What I'm saying is,
maybe
if
for a
it
while,
does, they will
the
bring
publishers
it back.
and brands, they'll lose for a while, but ultimately they'll always come back. Because you're right, Steve. That's where their money is. That is their bread and butter. But maybe, just maybe, there could be an evolution of what this could be and what social media really means and the interaction between people. Because they're saying that there's also going to be less video. And if you've noticed Instagram and everything else, it's almost become a lot of video. And I'm not saying that a lot of people interact in video, right? You're not having a conversation. You're almost just watching. You're becoming a voyeur. So maybe if you're actually conversing again with people, having these long comments, these conversations.
But how are you supposed to have anything to talk to those people about if you don't know what's going on? Like, the whole Arab Spring started because countries in North Africa, people were able to connect to each other on Facebook and talk politics behind the government's back, and they couldn't do anything about it, and they just started toppling dictators. Or you see a Now This or something on politics, or a Washington Post or New York Times or whatever, and they post an article, and you click on it and you read it, and then you start talking about it. You repost it with a comment.
Yeah, but like LeVar said on the comments, how many people, instead of getting the New York Times or getting publications like that on their newsfeed, are getting all these fake news websites? All these like self-published. It could be liberal or right-leaning, whatever, but there's a lot of fake news out there, and Facebook is a big culprit of why people are getting that information. And some people wholeheartedly believe that information.
Yeah, well, all fake news is the same thing people did before the internet, when they just talked to each other on the streets and in the barber shops and in the corner in the grocery store, and they just told you the gossip that they heard. It's the exact same thing, except just on crack.
Yeah, also, and maybe this is like a chicken and egg thing, but a lot of the articles that I see on my feed are not like sponsored posts. It's people sharing posts, right?
Yes.
Friends network. So that's not to say, like, if your friend is sharing a link, are they saying you won't see the shared link in your timeline? Or is it just like those sponsor or promoted
I'm hoping it's just the promoted ones.
No, it's exactly.
But then again, I just paid for promotion for this.
No, like if I share an article from like The Hill and there's 3 or 4 comments on it, it's gonna get pushed up on your timelines because we're all friends, and because what they're doing is they're pushing for the space for people to converse. So, for example, a like is not going to matter anymore as much as it used to. They're going to put engagement in the form of comments are going to matter. And not even like a one-word comment, because now they have robots, right? That they'll go and they'll troll and they'll have these pre-made comments or whatever. No, they're going to put above comments that are long, that are intricate, that, like, Joe, sometimes you write things like that. They're just very long and, like, you put thought behind that.
Let's be clear, though, the bots are making long comments as well.
Yeah, but they're not making any sense. You can tell when a bot...
writing
sometimes.
That's what I'm saying. So
but some of these like real people don't make sense either.
That's true too. I mean, Trump never makes any sense. I always say I feel so bad for the guy or girl who has to do the closed captioning for when Donald Trump is talking.
Yeah.
Because for one, you never use a period. You don't ever have to worry about using a period. But for two, there's no grammar or any kind of control. Hey, we have another guest.
Yeah. By the way, listening to the Fire and Fury book, where he sort of just like
was that a plug?
Reads Trump's words verbatim. Hilarious. And I don't know if it's like this is like he's a poor writer or he is just sort of quoting the way these people speak. But the book sounds like drivel.
It's
right?
funny though.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't read it or heard it yet.
But you know what? I wouldn't have heard of Fire and Fury, and I wouldn't have heard about the next topic we're going to talk about if it weren't for having something been posted on Facebook where I saw a news video or something. I wouldn't have known about that. The person who was shot in that hallway in that hotel. There's a lot of things that I genuinely would have had to spend a lot more time searching for, but it just came to me without having to search, and then my interest was piqued, and then I had something to talk about and go. So I really hope that if they tweak the news feed, that it's in the favor of us rather than people who are spending money. But then again, I know it's a business, so what are you going to do?
Also, maybe you should go out and live life and have conversations about
the sun is hot. Nobody wants this. There's global warming.
All right, let's talk about police and teachers.
Police and teachers. Okay.
That was a horrible video.
Listen, it was not as horrible as some of the other videos we've seen with interactions with the police. I mean, thankfully, there's a whole bunch of people here, and I hate to say it, but thankfully she was a white woman because she was forcibly pushed to the ground in the hallway and arrested and taken out. The school district did not press charges, but the point was that this is a teacher. A teacher,
she's a public servant.
Like a public servant. Teachers is just like your wife who's a teacher. Like some of the best people in my life have been teachers who educated me just like parents do, but who really, the only reason I'm here today, I believe, is because I've had certain teachers, Miss Coletta in my high school, Mrs. Hart when I was an elementary school teacher. When I was in elementary school, she was my teacher. These were people who instilled an idea in me that I could be better and only got to spend a couple hours a day half of a year, 9 months of a year with 30 other students, but they still did it. They spend their own money in classrooms buying supplies. The tax bill just took that credit away from them that they could use. And now we have a teacher in Louisiana who stood up at a school board meeting and wanted to know why the superintendent and the principal had just gotten raises, and somehow there wasn't enough money to give the teachers raises, there wasn't enough money to buy books in classrooms. And she said, education happens in the classroom. It doesn't happen at school board meetings. And
it doesn't.
And she wanted to know why. And yes, she may have gotten a bit emotional about it and possibly spoken out of turn. Important. It's very important. And
I would expect a teacher to feel adamant like she did about
absolutely.
That. You get me? Like, I would be worried if a teacher didn't feel that strongly about how she felt about that, because then that just talks to how much she cares about her job. And those are the type of people that you need teaching your kids.
Is your wife watching you right now? Because you have to preach to a choir.
No, but I'm sure she'll hear it.
Yeah, listen. You can't. Even the people that were around this woman at the time said, "Don't touch her. Don't put your hands on her. Don't touch." They were upset that their first action, because they said that it was out of order. That her comments were out of order. They weren't in the purview of what they were supposed to be talking about. And they all were like, "What are you? We're talking about the budget." You paying a superintendent or a principal over $100,000 a year, but somehow can't afford to give some teachers money for rulers or for chalk or for books for students. I mean, you got students in Maryland that have no heat in their school, and yet they spent $30 million to build a juvenile detention center. They got money to lock the kids up, but not to warm them up in a school that is mandated. They have to go to school.
Look, I think this is indicative of three things, and this is all I really have to say about this, and I'll get off it. One is the underappreciation, or at least the way that education and intelligence is now vilified in our country. You get me? And that's being shown at the federal level and at the state level and at the local level. The second thing it shows is that local level politics are not exempt from corruption, and in most cases they are all corrupt. That doesn't just happen in Louisiana. That happens in school districts here in Jersey. I'm sure it happens in New York. I've been aware of them. You see it happen where administrators make $100K and teachers are barely surviving. And when you forget is that teachers don't stop working at 3 o'clock. They work all weekend. Yep. They work at night. I've seen my wife do it all the time. And the third thing that I think is also indicative of is that teachers are highly underappreciated. In a way that in other nations they aren't, and that needs to change at a social and a cultural level, and then I think it'll be reflected in our laws and in the way that they're treated. But teachers are important if our country's going to prosper and become, and maintain its status as a world leader. And in the U.S., there's none of that. Teachers are not looked at as an important career. They're almost shunned, and I think that's wrong. And it really worries me about who, people aren't going to want to become teachers anymore. And I'm worried about my kids when they get older and who's going to be teaching them. Because like you, Joe, I do feel that there were some teachers in my life that inspired me to be better, that course corrected me when I wasn't maybe going down the right path, and I owe them a lot. But those are people that cared about their jobs. What happens when people are just taking these jobs and they don't care, or they're made to feel like they're not cared about? Then what happens to the education system? What happens for our children? And that to me is kind of scary. And it really sucks to see a video of this woman being treated this way simply for bringing up something that should have been brought up. There's no reason administrators are making $100,000 when you're claiming you can't afford to buy books for the students. And that's just fucked up.
All right.
And that's all I have to say.
I want to play a little game. It's called Let's Reverse the Races. What if the teacher was a black woman and the officer was a white guy? What do you think the conversation would be around?
For one, it would be at the top of all the news feeds. I wouldn't have been at the bottom where I.
And it would be a conversation about race and not education.
Exactly. What he just said right there. I couldn't have said better. It would have been a conversation about race and not about education.
And I think the main point would have gotten overlooked. And like Joe said in the beginning, I think it actually, in this instance, it's great that she was white. I don't know if it would have mattered if the cop was black or white. It's kind of, he's a black cop, and I guess seeing that juxtaposition to itself is a little. You're not used to it because we're so used to seeing the roles reversed in society.
Why is it great that she?
But
just for her personally, it's probably good because she probably, if the roles were reversed, it is very easy to picture that she would have been much more harshly treated, and they might have actually pressed charges against her.
Yeah.
Yes.
This also reminds me. Do you remember when the nurse was like doing her job as a nurse, and the police officer kind of arrested her?
And that was a white cop and a white nurse, and that.
Yeah, and it's I always the reason I say that
I hope she sues the district for exactly how much they're paying their superintendent.
Sure.
That'll be a way to just dig that in there, right?
But I do notice that when we see this and we see the nurse, we see in both of those cases the women they are
being manhandled.
They're being manhandled. I guess what I'm saying is, I guess the difference when there's a reversal of the races, like the way she was behaving, if that was a person of color, they would say, you're being hysterical or you're resisting, and the level of force. It just, again, I'm just going by what we see. Right, exactly, and that to me is. The only word I'm going to say is interesting.
It is interesting,
but because
I was just so.
That's a nice way of putting it.
It's just so depressing, and it's really kind of like a little microcosm as to where we're going right now. Where it's no matter what color the officer is, it's it's using the police power to silence people from their First Amendment rights, to silence people who are bringing up corruption and bringing up the things that are wrong with the world, and then they're being brutally put down because. You can't have that. You can't.
And it happens at all levels of government. I mean, here
this is just a little tiny thing. It's a school board meeting. For one, why is there a security officer with a full-on everything that a cop needs right there at a school board meeting when it's just a teacher?
I don't know if that's a problem.
It's not necessarily a problem, but like look where he is.
But if he's a police officer on duty, he would have his
but I mean, what do you need a police officer on duty for at a school board meeting? Have him at the door. He doesn't need to be standing right there in the crowd telling these women to shut up.
Well, no, but we also are just seeing, and I'm not like defending the cop. I'm just saying what we saw is. Because I saw someone talking about this, and they were saying, okay, we see this instance, right? We see this part of it, but we don't know where that police officer was the whole time. We know that we see this section of it where she is making her points, and then he's. I
think at this point she's saying, "Don't touch me."
Yeah. So, but. They claim that she was being disrupted, and they asked her to leave several times. And if they ask you to leave, if you're protesting a Senate hearing or something, and you are disrupting the proceedings, they will escort you out. Now, if you do not comply, they will put hands on you, and again, I'm not saying that his use of force was justified, but
in a truly free country,
he was doing his job, but they
should you be kicked out of a public meeting? I mean, she has more reason than anyone to be there.
Well,
she's a teacher, right?
But
so I mean,
yes,
I get what you're saying.
I guess I'm saying like if it is it, and I don't have an answer to this because I wasn't there, but is it? It is a public meeting, but the meeting is for everyone, and if they're saying that they cannot proceed with the meeting,
I agree with you.
What are they supposed to do?
Well, I think she did her job. If she wanted to bring this issue to light, she's done it. It's at a national level now.
Definitely up there.
And again, you're right. I don't know everything that happened. I've seen little bits and pieces of it. This image right here is a pretty powerful image, I think. But aside from that, I think whether or not she was wrong or right in how she acted, or if she took it too far, or whether the board was right in their actions, it doesn't matter. I think the thing we should concentrate on, and I think the thing the media should concentrate on, is the fact that this isn't the only school district in where administrators are being paid an insane amount of money while their schools are hurting, while the kids don't have textbooks, or they have outdated textbooks or broken computers, and when the teachers have to live paycheck to paycheck. And I think that is the main issue, and that's what we should focus on,
at least
regardless of everything else that happened.
At least in this image, the officer doesn't look like he's trying to be mean. He looks like he's just like,
he does.
Don't make me do this.
Her and
he's like, don't make me do this. Like they're.
Come on. But we know this is going to be on social media now, so whatever.
Well, I think this is good for the last topic. The last two sort of topics.
I think Steve should take this topic, man.
Why? Because his name is Steve.
Because Steve's been right. Steve called this, I think, weeks ago, man.
No, not yet. We got to do the London thing first. We're going to get there.
Real quick with
the London thing. Wait,
real quick. So Donald Trump basically blamed Obama for why he couldn't. He's like, I'm not going to London. I'm not going to London because of what that Obama did. And he says that Obama made a mistake in selling the embassy when it was George Bush that did it.
And he sold it for peanuts. I don't know if still says that.
He sold it for enough money to pay for the new embassy. We didn't have to spend any money. The amount of money that he sold, the Bush administration sold the embassy for one because it was in an area that they said was prone to a terrorist attack.
Terrorism, yeah.
And then they used the same amount of money and then built a new embassy that was safer, more up to date, and housed all of our foreign service personnel. But the real reason it was because he was disinvited. Over 1 million British citizens signed a petition asking their parliamentarians to not allow Donald Trump to set foot in London.
He wasn't formally disinvited. I think he was
not formally. I think
he was afraid of the protests that would be there for him. Mm-hmm. Also, maybe he's just mad because they didn't give the contract to his organization, right? The Trump organization didn't get to build it. That said,
and just out of spite of Obama, he won't go and open up a new embassy in one of our greatest allies. What a prick!
It's a joke.
But again, I think this just talks to who he is. I mean, we're not surprised. I know we're just bringing it up because it's the dumbest shit you could have ever said, and to just be caught in such a I feel bad for his communications team because this is a flat out lie. But with that being also said, his followers probably believe it. Obama's the Antichrist. Obama's a fucking Muslim Kenyan, who works with ISIS or whatever. So his followers are believing this, and that's all that matters to him. And then also why he's not going is because it would have been bad for the Trump brand. There would have been people out there protesting him, shouting. It would have, the TV coverages would have all been on that.
And the British know how to they know how to throw a comment at you.
They know how to throw a tea party, right?
Yeah.
And, so all I'm saying is that for him, it was a way to deflect, and he did it right. Now the conversation's become about this, about not really why he's not going, and his followers are just going to believe it. It's because Obama fucked up, and he's standing up to Obama, and he's the man, and he's strong, and he's right, and he's cutting for a better deal. End of story. And that's why he's not going to London, and his followers believe it, and there's nothing else we can do about that. Because us intelligent people here are just going to have to wade through this bullshit and take it for face value because
he's not welcome in London.
But yeah, so I don't know.
Okay, so
he's an idiot.
Esteban de Bannon.
Sloppy Steve.
Sloppy Steve.
I would like to say that I do not appreciate my name being associated with this, but Sloppy Steve is not bad. I'll take Sloppy Steve. It's like Sloppy Joe's, but disgusting.
Sloppy Steve cucks himself.
Now,
I had to write that headline.
The thing is, so I have been reading the Fire and Fury book this week. And it is so it feels like a book that's more designed around Steve Bannon and his view of the White House. And again, it really paints a picture of, as they say, a White House in turmoil, filled with cravens and sycophants and people, trying to advance their own careers. But back to Sloppy Steve. Now, I said this a while ago, and nobody wanted to listen to Black Steve. But I said that Steve Bannon was a hack. I said he ran a blog. He threw some money into some Hollywood projects, and where all of a sudden, because we need a villain, we wanted to portray him as the guy in the background pulling all the strings. And the fact was, even if you read the Fire and Fury book, he did not have that level of control. The control that he had is what he had, the perception of control, right? And it was a constant fight between Bannon and Jervanka to have to sort of get the attention of the president, because no one knew what he was doing. And we see that now he had an overinflated sense of himself. And once his star seemed to raise above the president, he was pushed out of there because Trump is the sun and everyone else is a planet that's in his orbit. And again, what did we see him do? We saw him enjoy the publicity he was getting again when the Word of the Fire and the Fury book came out. And he took time because he liked his name being in the news. And then he realized that the White House was putting the screws on him, and then he lost the backing of the Mercers. That's his number one benefactor. And then after he loses his money, right, his sugar daddies, then he goes out and puts out a bitch-made apology, right? But at this point, Trump has a very long memory, and that's too late. And now,
long memory.
He does. That man holds grudges.
Yeah, he only has a long memory of who slighted him. Everything else is he's like
it goes in one ear, out the other.
Right. He's like the goldfish from Finding Nemo. But then Breitbart, who is also heavily backed by the Mercers as a propaganda machine, has also parted ways with him. Now they're saying that he is resigning, but we know what that is. So now we see that this is a guy who basically, just like everyone else around Trump, rose to power through Trump. Trump didn't rise to power because of him, and we see him for what he is, for what I always saw he was. It's kind of sloppy. Sloppy Steve. Say what you want about Trump. I
think we do that.
He knows how to brand these things.
Yeah.
But
listen, to the effect, I will apologize for perhaps not acknowledging that you did kind of call that some time ago. I don't think there's any proof out there anyway that you ever said anything. But what I will say is that there, I like to think that there's a possibility that the collective efforts of everybody talking about Steve and putting it in Trump's ear that they thought Steve was the one pulling the strings, and how much that would piss him off to not think that he's the one in charge. That it might have been a collective effort of everybody talking about it that did push him out.
And by everybody, you mean Javanka.
Yeah, well, I kind of think it's like a Schrodinger's box kind of thing where if nobody said anything, he actually probably would have done all the things that we said. You know what I mean? And if we did say something, it meant that it wasn't going to happen. So, you will never know because so many people did make a big huff and puff about Steve Bannon being in the White House and he's the alt-righter and he's the racist and he's all this stuff.
And I'm glad they did.
Yeah, exactly. But had we not said all that stuff, he might have actually
become... Maybe he'd still be there. Maybe he'd have more
exactly, and he would have been all the stuff that we
pushed his agenda under the radar.
Exactly. So I'm happy with calling it even with Steve.
No, I'm not. Absolutely not.
Okay, no, but I'll take one step further.
Go ahead.
Steve was right. I was wrong.
I appreciate that.
I do think that there could have been a possibility of Bannon becoming who me and Joe thought he was, and he just lost it. He failed to really grasp onto that moment. He tried to be. You correctly said it, Steve. Right? Trump is a sun, and everything else orbits around him. I think he wanted to become a twin sun. Like I don't know what the hell
binary
he wanted.
Star system.
He just went too hard and too fast. And I think if he toned it down, he would have put himself in a position.
Well, so
now, without what happened with Trump, he lost some people that he was pushing for in these congressional races, right? That already issued that he wasn't as strong as he was. And then I think there's no coming back from this. It's over. He's not coming back from this. Steve Bannon is gone. I'm fucking happy it's true.
I don't know.
You were right.
He backed the pedophile.
I'm a big man, and I can say when I'm wrong, and I was wrong.
Well, you might be a big man now because your face is like 4 times larger on this TV. But I am still holding out a little bit of skepticism that he's gone because I don't think someone like him just fades into the dark. Even a binary star, when it flips out and loses its other star and it gets whipped out at this, less speed of the light.
You know what it does?
Flying around, it still hits something and eventually causes an explosion. It destroys
everything around it in a supernova.
That's only if they collapse.
I'm saying he's collapsing and the supernova
I'm saying
is about
he whipped out into deep space and now he's just a star flying through waiting to crash into something and make it burn.
I think Bannon will take down the administration. In that, I think because all he has to do is talk to Mueller.
Well, they said he did say that he was going to talk to Congress.
I've been trying to look into why is he testifying in Congress on Tuesday?
Because he knows things. And I
But
think he might disappear.
Did he call them?
Tuesday.
Did they call him? That's what I'm trying to get over here because I'm not really sure.
Whatever gets him in the news, he probably called them and they called him at the same time. They're like, "Oh, I tried calling you, but you were calling me, so I got the busy signal." And
yeah, but another point here, I think the reason he did not have the ear of the king, not to be confused with the ire, because that's what he got.
I saw what you did there on that one. See, words are important.
Yeah, but he needed to get rid of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. That's and there was the Fire and Fury book is really about the battle between them. The leaks that we got, a lot of them came from either Bannon or Jared and Ivanka. The idea was leaking on them before they leak on me, and trying to control. Everyone's sort of trying to control their right. There was this internal power struggle because Trump was sort of a empty vessel in a way that whoever is in his proximity will be able to affect the things that he says, right? So if he was able to oust Ivanka and Jared, then he would have had that influence that he wanted, but he was not able to overcome them.
Hi, Lily.
So that was his cardinal sin, was either going against them or not being able to take
in this
them
picture,
out.
He kind of looks like Jack Nicholson in like a combination of Cuckoo's Nest and The Shining.
Yeah, but in the book they say he would wear like the same pair of jeans for 6 days, and people would tell him, "Why don't you change your clothes?" That's where the whole sloppy Steve thing comes from.
Okay. He always looked like he was wearing the same clothes to me.
But he still thinks that his race is genetically superior to,
And for a time, I thought that he was essentially playing a role, like I want to look like the base, but he's really just sloppy Steve.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
Good comments there.
Do we have anything else?
Nothing that's on the list, unless anybody that might be watching has a comment. But
I do want to bring something up, just more for anyone who's watching now or who will be watching. Just kind of stay safe out there, especially if you have kids. There's a big flu going around. It's probably coast to coast, with the exception of Washington D.C., which to me is weird.
And Hawaii.
But yeah, just stay safe. The flu shot isn't working, so don't worry about that, and just keep your kids safe, man. Because yeah, that's always something to worry about.
Okay, Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah.
Oh, and go watch Puffs. If you're a Harry Potter fan, do it. It's the best thing on Broadway right now. I saw it last night with the wife, and it was a great show. So off topic, but just thought I'd share it.
Whatever. I talked about The Lion King, but at least I
for an off-Broadway show that
tied it in.
Me, so.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for us, all of us here at the second page on the R Squared Network.
Yep.
Steve, you want to plug the reel?
Yeah, later on today we will be doing the next episode of On the Reel. We're going to talk about James Franco. We're also going to talk about Oprah 2020. And we are going to
leave James Franco alone.
We're going to pick our favorite death scenes in movies.
That's cool.
So that should be fun.
That's cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and there are some more things on the horizon that we can't talk about yet, but that's about it. On the Reel later today at some point. Hopefully we'll get to do it before midnight, because that's what always ends up happening anyway.
I try to tune in. I'll be at work.
Hey, we appreciate it. We appreciate it all. Jay, what do you got? You want to tell them anything? Tell them what to find.
No, man, I already did. You guys can find me at J Martinez Jr. on Twitter. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week. Stay safe out there, warm, and fuck Trump and Bannon. Anything more to say about that?
I have to say he's a racist. But this is also our first Skype show. So this proves the model. If you guys want to call in and join us on the show, you guys can call in on Skype. It seems to have worked very well, although maybe no one out there in TV land can hear you. So
then that would suck.
Hopefully the sound is coming through and the delay isn't bad. But call us up if you guys want to be on the show next week, just leave a message here, message any one of us, and we will find a way to get you on the show because we want to hear from you, especially if you support Trump.
Yes.
Yes. That's cool. Yeah.
And how about Joe? Where can we find you?
Where can you find me? In St. Louis, rolling on dubs. No, I guess you could find me at this here Twitter handle.
Joseph S. Oswald.
That's a Joseph S. Oswald.
Come on, man.
And we bought.
You gotta remember.
I'm never gonna do it because it's just fun at this point. The word of the year is shitholes, and eventually
it's still January though.
Yeah, it's the whole year so far. Eventually,
just began.
Jay and I are hoping to put together a website, thesecondpage.com.org and .net. We have the domains. We're just trying to build the site now.
And that's
want to do some blogging.
The 2NDPG, right?
2NDPG.
Yes.
Don't go to thesecondpage.com.
Yeah, no. The 2NDPG, it kind of rolls off the tongue. But, we're hoping to get a nice little blog together so we can actually go more in depth into some of the things that we talk about, not just the hour and a half, 2 hours that we have to talk and, look pretty for everybody out there on TV land.
But you think I'm pretty, Joe?
No, I think I'm pretty. I'm kidding. So hopefully everybody enjoyed the show, and you will comment even afterwards if you haven't watched live. You can still comment on the video, and we definitely hope that people interact because that's what democracy is all about: is people working with each other. So thank you everybody again for watching. Have a good time, I guess, right? Enjoy the rest of your year.
Enjoy your long weekend.
Yeah, long weekend. Happy Monday.
And remember why we're off Monday, especially in the state of how things are today. Remember why we're off Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that struggle still continues. So, you know.
And Steve is still sloppy.
And Steve is still sloppy.
And shitholes.
Shitholes. Yes. All right. And with that, we are out of here.